Hi, and welcome to Conductor, where we are two sisters on a mission to amplify women's voices on the podium.
Join us as we interview leaders in the field of choral music, share resources, and build a community for current and future teacher conductors, all while exploring the gender divide. I'm Kyra Starr.
And I'm McKenna, and we are Conductor. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conductor. We are so excited you're here today. We are thrilled to have Dr. Renee Wilson on the podcast with us. Welcome, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here and so grateful for the opportunity to get to speak to you and your listeners today.
So as you know, we're going to give just a little bit of information about the fabulous Dr. Renee Wilson. So here we go. Renee Wilson is Associate Professor of Music Education at Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi, where she serves as Coordinator of Graduate Studies in Music, as well as Coordinator of Music Education. She is President of Kodály Mississippi, a chapter of the Organization of American Kodály Educators. Dr. Wilson is a graduate of Western Kentucky University and Texas Tech University, where she studied with Drs. Janice Killian and Dr. Susan Brumfield. Prior to her appointment at MC, she served students in Kentucky and Texas public schools as an elementary music teacher and band director.
Dr. Wilson has presented Kodály-inspired clinics for educators through the Mid-South Music Institute, the West Texas Kodály Initiative, and the Mississippi Music Educators Association. A significant research interest for Dr. Wilson is the lived experiences of band directors, and she has presented this research for organizations such as the National Association for Music Education, the Society for Research in Music Education, and the Pop Culture Association / American Culture Association. Welcome again, Dr. Wilson. We're so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much.
So to lead into our interview, we would love to hear just a little bit about how you came to music and just how you ended up here. What was your love of music? Go ahead.
I won't go all the way back to birth, but I will go back to elementary school. I went to 4 different elementary schools, and I mention that because that means that I had at least 4 unique music ed experiences. I only remember the last 2. The one I had in 3rd and 4th grade was super positive. I remember learning how to play the recorder and watching Peter and the Wolf and getting to hear about instruments that way. And that was probably one of my introductions to instrumental music. And then I had a really negative experience moving into another school, a teacher that just didn't seem to have a joy for it anymore. And showed that with us. In fact, there was an experience, and I always share this with my students because I have terrible performance anxiety, especially around singing. This particular teacher came and got me out of class one day, and she said, come down here, I'm going to have you audition for a solo. Okay. So we go into the cafetorium, which there were just ladies back there making lunch, nobody else in there or anything, but she had me stand on the stage and she was playing the piano and she started into the song. I don't even remember what it was. And I started to sing along and she stopped and she looked at me and she goes, "It's not that high." And nowhere in my career have I ever responded to a student performing alone that way. But I really think that might have been the beginning of it. But aside from that, I was really interested in the idea of being in band. So in 6th grade, when I got the opportunity to try out, I decided that I wanted to try out on trumpet, trombone, and flute. I had a babysitter when I was young who played flute, and I just thought she was the coolest, and I wanted to be just like her. And so when I went to audition, I did not get an easy and beautiful sound on the trumpet, but I did with the other 2, and I ended up picking flute, probably because of that babysitter's influence from when I was really little. I got lots of encouragement through beginner band with my band director, Beth Stribling. She was amazing. She just retired last year. She had an amazing career. But she was a wonderful band director for me. And then I went into junior high where I had Keith Vincent, and he was another incredible mentor for me. And it was during that time that I decided, though I had always known I wanted to be a teacher, I want to be a band director. And I want to teach middle school. Like, that is my heart. I want to do middle school. And I think it's because I had such a love for it, and I noticed how much I had grown during that time, and I enjoyed my musical experiences. I went through high school, there was a person in our lives who spoke to us as a large group and advised us not to major in music and not to major in music education specifically because you, quote, put your fate in the hands of 15-year-olds and pray. So by the end of high school, I decided I was going to be an elementary education major, and I was going to start school that way. The school that I went to, Western Kentucky, for my undergraduate, offered a double major program in elementary music, which certified you K through 8, and then elementary classroom, K through 4. And so I went into that thinking maybe I just want to do elementary music or elementary classroom. Well, throughout the coursework for that, this is a long story. Throughout the coursework for that, I determined that I was in the wrong major. Every prompt that I was given about an important educational experience was about band. Every prompt I was given about an influential teacher was about a band director I'd had. And I just looked at myself in the middle of my sophomore year and said, what am I doing? I'm a music major. So I changed. I figured out how to get out of that and how to get through my degree and get finished. I had some incredible teachers through college. I had lots of opportunities for leadership through junior high and high school, being a section leader, being a drum major eventually, that I think built into my efficacy for this is something that I can do as a career. And so that's something that I've been really interested in trying to help my students do at the collegiate level, is develop that same kind of efficacy because they've had those similar kinds of experiences. So that's how I came into music.
And now a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hey, Kyra.
Hey, McKenna.
You know what choral directors are always looking for?
What?
Well, as choral directors, we are always looking for new pieces to program for our upcoming concerts, and Pavon Publishing is proud to have some outstanding women composers and conductors in its catalog.
Wow, what are some of the new releases?
Well, let me tell you. Canto e Liberta by Diana Saez and Suzette Ortiz for treble voices, piano, and percussion. It was premiered under the direction of Dr. Iris Levine from Conductor Season 1 and is in her Pavon Treble Choral series.
Ukrainian composer Irina Alexichuk's Holy Lord of Hosts is stunning and was premiered in the U.S. by Grant Gershon and the LA Master Chorale. Grant has launched his new series with Pavon in support of this remarkable composer.
Zenaida Robles, one of the most sought-after female writers, will have her latest composition, The Summit is Nigh, premiered at the ACDA National Convention in Dallas this March. Again, a Conductor Season 2 interviewee.
Janaea Robison, conductor of the Lutheran National Choir, has two new offerings: an SATB voicing of her successful setting of I Wonder as I Wander, and new editions of Bach's cantata BWV 118, with alternative lyrics that enables performances from Advent and Christmas to Palm Sunday and Easter. Check out Pavon Publishing today at pavonpublishing.com.
And we're back.
Incredible. I think it's so important that we share those moments with those teachers who were not magical and those people in our lives who maybe were not the most supportive of us in the music classroom, because my husband talks about this all the time. He had a music teacher growing up that was terrible and really mean, and they hated music class. And I'm like, maybe this person had a love for music from a young age and never had the opportunity to explore this because that person did not simply invest their time into their students. So I think it's really important that we talk about those situations, because not every student who comes to our classrooms, particularly in the collegiate world, had a beautiful choral experience or a beautiful band experience. And I think it's important for our students to know you can rise above these occasions, and this can become your motivation to be that great teacher. So I appreciate you sharing all of that.
I love, too, how you talk about the efficacy and supporting pre-service teachers that are coming into your program at Mississippi, because what an opportunity to expand on those leadership skills and to help prepare teachers to go out into the world to be the best advocates that they can be, because a big part of what we do is advocacy, not only for ourselves, but for our students. So just really thrilled and excited to keep learning about you, Dr. Wilson. This is the best.
Thank you so much.
I saw McKenna nodding along as well because she played flute and was also the drum major. So I think there was a lot of band's connection.
I really, really was almost a band director. Like, it was this close, but I just knew like I had to play the flute. for some reason that was inside of me. When we got to hear a lot of different instruments that Kyra tried out, although being my personal favorite, violin for a while, guitar was really, so Kyra explored the gamut. It was great.
Clarinet was great. Yes, it didn't stick for me, Dr. Wilson, but I'm so glad for you that you're here. So you spoke a little bit about some of the incredible educators that you got to work with as a middle schooler and then as a high school student, and then you went into your undergraduate and had this kind of moment of being in these regular education classes and saying, this isn't for me. I don't think that this is my life's calling. Was there anything else, maybe prior to that moment, when you said to yourself, I'm going to not only be a band director, I'm going to be a band director and teach at the collegiate level? Maybe this happened later on in your career, but was there a time when you were like, I think I need to be in academia? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my career went back and forth between elementary music and band at different times for different reasons. When I first graduated from college, I went immediately into a K through 5 teaching environment. When I moved to Texas, I got a 5th grade through 12th grade band appointment. And part of that, they asked me to come up with another music class that I could teach that would help me maintain my load. And I said I would be glad to do a group voice kind of class. There were only about 9 students who needed that elective, and I didn't want to try to do a full-fledged choir with them. So we did group voice. Then I went into band directing in another position where I was an assistant band director. And that community really kind of became my home community. I think sometimes we find those places to teach that just feel right. And Slayton, Texas was that for me. So I want to say that about Slayton ISD. I started as band director there. I moved into the elementary music position. That happened because I was a band director, married to another band director, and we were expecting our first child. And we were never teaching in the same school district. So there was none of this like, oh, we can all be together as a family. It was, which parent are you going to be with, or are you going to be with a babysitter? And so that was the choice I made at the time. It felt right to me. So I moved into the 4th and 5th grade music position, and I assisted with the junior high choir and learned a lot from Heidi Wilson there. She was my co-teacher for that choir. And then actually left music for a year and taught a Mother's Day Out program for 4-year-olds. That was a really cool experience. And then I came back into music, elementary, and then I went back into band. So back and forth, just whatever our situation needed for me professionally, for us as a family. That's what I did. I returned to band directing when my kids were 2 and 4. And I taught for a couple of years back in Slayton. I actually came back to that community to teach. And it was partway through those couple of years that I was there that I thought, I think my niche is with older students. I think what I really want to do is to help teachers understand things that I had to learn with a lot of experience. And so I think that's probably why a lot of us get into academia. I think, especially those of us who go into education, I think we're thinking about how can we help other people either have an easier transition than we have, or just know more, or have more relevancy to their education. And that is not a dig on people who have been teaching for a really long time or any place that I was educated before at all. We all come into this wanting to do better for our students than what we had for ourselves. And so that was my goal. I just wanted to come in with my experience as a band educator, as an elementary music teacher, even as a little bit of choral experience. I wanted to be able to say, okay, this is what it's like to teach in a small school. That's where my heart is. Low socioeconomic settings, smaller schools. These represent a lot of the schools where our students are eventually placed. And I want to be helpful with that.
Oh, I love that so much. We were writing down some of the quotes you were saying because there was so much in there that was really beautiful. And I think it's important to talk about the transitions in life and to remind our listeners that you may not be where you thought you were going to be 5 years ago, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to end up back right where you started. So I loved kind of your flip-flopping journey that you were describing between elementary and the band world. And I immediately thought of our own mom who quit her beautiful high school job when she was pregnant with me. And so, she was able to make it work for the first 4 years with McKenna. And then when she found out that she was having a second kid, she was like, you know what? I can't make these hours work, and I'm going to go and teach elementary school. And then the girls can come with me to school and we can have the same schedule. And that was a sacrifice that she made for us. And she was an incredible elementary music teacher, but we kind of knew that her heart was with those high school students, and still is. They're still really special people to her. So we see that decision making, and we know it's not always the easiest.
I also think it's really powerful to hear about everyone's journey, because so many of us come into, I think, teaching with somewhat of a linear expectation. Like, first, I will graduate, then I will teach, and then maybe I'm going to go back and get my master's, and then maybe I'm going to teach. All of us have some sort of preconceived notion of what it looks like to be in this career. And then I think we all know that day one, when you go into the classroom, all of a sudden you realize, oh my, there's a lot more to explore and unpack, and things really are not linear. And if they were, how boring would that be? And so everyone's journey coming into this profession, and to hear about the power that you took in ownership over your career and the different facets that you were able to serve, this like service leadership that you did in all these different areas, is really beautiful. And I know what it's like to have a musical spouse. And my husband went from a full-time position, is now working part-time, and is caring for our child in addition to working part-time. And I watched those sacrifices and the brilliant dad that he is. And it's just really powerful, I think, to hear about the journey. So thank you. We have one more intro question for you. And you've talked about some of these people that have been helpful and influential along your journey. Is there anyone else that you would want to mention who's been impactful in your musical journey?
Well, I would be remiss to not mention the importance of my faith, given the fact that I teach at a Baptist college. My faith should be very evident that that's important to me. So I have learned over the last probably 25 years to rely more on the leading of my God, who already is in all of my tomorrows, already knows the best plan for me, and knows my heart, and can help me be the person that he made me to be. That is definitely something that I would want to mention, aside from my faith. You mentioned in my bio important teachers I'd had at the master's and PhD level. Dr. Janice Killian was my mentor and main teacher through my master's degree. I wrote my thesis with her. I learned so much about research and just what a life in academia is really like. It was really to her credit that I wanted to go back and get my PhD. That was not a thought. I did not think, McKenna, you were speaking about your ideas about your trajectory of your career over time. And in my undergraduate years, I never would have guessed that I would go beyond my master's degree, or that I would ever have the desire to teach at the college level. But just staying true to your heart over time and paying attention to those influences like Dr. Killian, who really fostered my love for research and made me realize that we all research all the time. We're doing informal, practical research in our classrooms all the time. Even if you think, I'm just, quote, quote, right? A fifth grade elementary music teacher. Great. You are doing research all the time. When you try something and it doesn't work for your students, so you try another way, that is your own research in action. And so she really fostered a love of research. When I went back to work on my PhD, I had the good fortune to take a couple of Dr. Susan Brumfield's classes, and she is a Kodai-inspired teacher herself and is a leader in that part of the world. She really has grown my understanding of what children can do and what they can know, and how they can be expressive and make beautiful music, even at the very youngest ages. And so she has just been, in addition to a wonderful friend and colleague, she's been an incredible mentor for me. And I will say that when I made the transition into teaching in the collegiate environment, my chair at the time, Dr. Angie Willoughby, was very helpful to me in helping me see how my experiences in K-12 education translate very well at the collegiate level. And she was incredibly supportive. And so I currently have an incredible team of teachers that I work with here at Mississippi College, and they are all amazing. She was one who particularly helped me make that jump.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hey everyone, come check out the newest collaborations with Conductor and Call Time Clothing. Shop the newest designs from your favorite female conductor-owned clothing line, inspired by choir music education, made to order just for you. Get one of your own for $35 Canadian, or about $26 American, plus a flat rate shipping fee. Visit calltimeclothing.com today. Do you live near other conductors and want to save on shipping? Order multiple tees in one order so that you only pay one shipping fee. Visit calltimeclothing.com today or follow us on Instagram.
And we're back.
Incredible. We appreciate you shouting out all of those specific people and experiences that have kind of made you who you are. And you have such an incredible memory. I just want to add as well, your recall is amazing with all of these names that you've been able to sprinkle in here. And so I think all of those people are probably really proud to be part of the journey and proud to be part of your life and where you are today. McKenna, did you want to add something as well?
No, I'm excited. We're going to dive into to some of our additional questions here. Kyra, do you want to kick it off?
Amazing. So we found you, Dr. Wilson, because we actually just wrote an article for the Choral Journal. And we were researching about women, specifically in choral music, but came across your article as we were researching some of our topics, including work-life balance, having children in the field. Some of these things that we've discovered are oftentimes barriers for women or prevent them from staying in the field. And so your article, Batons and Babies, which we love the title, a qualitative phenomenological study of mothers who are band directors, is one that we read. And I immediately was like, oh my gosh, McKenna, we need to interview this person. So I was wondering if you could describe your research a little bit that you presented in this article, and talk about the inspiration behind you choosing this topic to research.
This article was born during a qualitative research class I was taking as a PhD student at Texas Tech. So I will shout out yet another fine educator, Dr. Bruce Wood, who was teaching that class at the time. And we were to think of a topic that we would like to write about by the end of the class. That was going to be our final project. And so as we were sharing ideas around the table one day, I said, this is what I'm thinking. And he lit up. And his enthusiasm for that just made me feel so validated. And so I launched into it. I started with a local band director friend of mine who was a mom and a very successful band director. And she was my in-person contact. And I told some of her stories through that research. But then I also reached out over Facebook through a group that I was in and invited participants to participate in the survey. And so I sent that survey out and got responses from all over the United States, people who were in all different stages of their career. I ended up with, I think it was 14 respondents in addition, it was either 14 or 15, in addition to the one that I had in person. And their comments were just sometimes heartbreaking and sometimes really encouraging. And I thought, this is the power of qualitative research right here. Telling the stories of other people who may not have the time or the interest in sitting down and telling their own stories, but they'll let you in on their world a little bit. And so that's how I approached this research. I just wanted to tell the stories of as many band directors as I could. And I realized that we have really diverse experiences, but there are some common threads that are not only across band directing, as I found out later, but also about choral and orchestra conducting, and even sometimes in elementary music spheres.
Absolutely. I love that this started in a class and that this was an assignment for you to take on. It immediately made me think of an experience that I had related to our article where I was taking a class at my institution and brought it to my professor and was like, hey, I'm going to be published in the Choral Journal. Any chance you want to give the article a read? And they asked me, what's the topic about? And I said, oh, it's about women in choral conducting, or the lack thereof. And their response was, I don't think there's anything you could say on this topic that hasn't already been said. And this was literally 2 months ago. So it's amazing how these experiences can kind of guide what we do, and the influence of a single professor or teacher at any level can really make the difference in someone's life. And so I'm so glad that this teacher was so encouraging of you and said, yes, this is such a great topic and it's going to help so many people.
So something Kyra and I were exploring in our article that's coming out was about women who start in the field of choral music, but then over time are either unable to remain or choose not to remain in the field. And so we were really interested when we were reading your article that the article underscores how gender biases shape perceptions of competence and suitability for specific roles in professions, where skill and experience, as we know, should be the determining factors. So we were wondering if you could expand a little bit more about your findings from the article and maybe about the gender biases that you and women from the study experienced.
One of the things that's come through, not only in that article, but in research I've done since then, that continues to come through, is that oftentimes women will interview for a position, and the interviewers will decide and either articulate to the interviewee or in closed conversations later that that person is not a suitable choice for that job because of their gender. I want to say that I don't think this is limited to women in choral conducting, band directing, or orchestra directing careers. I think this also happens to men who apply for elementary positions or for positions where they're working with younger students. So I think there is bias on both sides. Because I write about the experiences of women, I think a common misconception is that I don't care or I don't see that there are other experiences happening. There definitely are other experiences happening. So I think that that can work both ways. But where I saw it in my research was administrators of any gender saying to the interviewees, either by what they say to them verbally or by the fact that they didn't hire them, you're not appropriate for this. We're looking for a male band director. You just don't look like a band director. What is a little thing like you going to do with that big old band? It really gets thick, I think, sometimes when people are making assumptions based on either your gender or your stature, that you may not be able to handle a particular position, when none of the things that make you uniquely one gender or another, or tall or short, or heavy set or thin, or those things do not make you a conductor or a teacher. These are physical properties. These have nothing to do with your knowledge and your skills and your experience. It's really frustrating, but that is something that came through and continues to come through. People want to say, those days are gone, we're past that. That's not the experience of every person.
Oh, that was very powerful, Dr. Wilson. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is in general in our field, having this imposter syndrome already of having to build yourself up and saying, I am qualified to be here, and I'm confident and I'm excited about this job, and then getting into the room and having somebody come back at you with either a physical comment or something that's maybe not quite as direct, but lets you know that they don't think that you're right for the job for something as basic as just your height. I think this is an experience that, as you said, we are hoping is not happening anymore, but unfortunately for a lot of people, it still is. And I think that it's important that we talk about it and say, we are here and we understand that these experiences are still happening. And by wishing that they weren't, we aren't going to solve the problem. So we appreciate all of those words that you just said.
I think, too, it's really powerful to bring up that because our research is focused on women and the women experience doesn't mean that there are not other issues taking place. So I recently had the opportunity to conduct a large children's choir, 4th through 8th grade. And I was speaking about it with some friends and just saying, I wonder what in my resume made me the best candidate for this position. Because when you go through and look at my CV, you will find, yes, I have worked with children's choir and young voices, but my predominant experience has been in the 9th through 12th grade brackets or higher. I love working with children's choir. That is not the question here. But I wonder what about my past experiences, what qualified me to be the best candidate for this position when looking at others who may not look like me or be my gender, may have a vast experience with children's choir. Just so many questions that keep coming up and lots of research to continue down in that path. Yeah, very powerful. Thank you for sharing what you did.
I wanted to stay on the article for just another moment and read a lengthier quote from the end of your article, which says, much like other working mothers, mothers who direct bands must become excellent managers of their resources. Coordinating childcare for evening and weekend obligations is an idea which surfaced many times throughout the data collection and literature review phases of this study. Supportive husbands can have a powerful influence in this area, providing care for their children, assisting their wives with logistical details of running rehearsals and setting up for concerts, and sporting a positive attitude regarding job demands. Family and in-laws can also have a significant positive impact on the function of the mother/band director's family by their involvement and support. You've spoken a little bit about your own children and navigating these choices as a mom and your own career. We talk about this a lot with guests on the podcast who are also mothers and are constantly asking the questions of how do you do this and what are some things that worked for you? So could you share some strategies that maybe you discovered in your research or maybe you've just employed in your own life that you found to be really successful in supporting working mothers?
So something that came through in the research that I also personally experienced were these areas of support that you just read off. The female band director that I interviewed, who was local to me at the time, had band families. The parents of some of her band students were willing to keep her kids while she was in rehearsal with their kids. And so she found a community that was really helpful in that way. It's another shout out to the small schools. I think that that is something that's really easy to find when you're in a small community. For me, I was blessed that my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and his wife all lived in the town close to the towns where we were teaching and in the town where we lived. And they were very helpful and very willing to take our kids for a Friday evening if we both had a football game, or at times bring them to the game so they could see mom or dad doing the job right. That was very helpful. Of course, just within our family, and I think this was also the case with some of my respondents from the survey, working out that schedule of between you and your spouse, who's going to take the child when, where are you going to be, and what time will you be home so that I can go and take care of this. Another interesting demand that came up presented when our kids got sick. So when a child gets sick, we worked out a system eventually. This is the system we came to. We are both band directors. I am an assistant band director. He is the sole band director at his school. So what I did, not because I was the wife or the mom or the woman, but because I was the one who was an assistant director. If the kids were sick, I would take the first day. And he would go to school and he would make plans as if he wasn't going to be there the next day. And then my colleague, who was incredibly supportive and helpful through all of this, would take the day with our band students. And the second day I would be back. My husband would be at home. I would make plans if I needed to be gone the next day. And we would just alternate out that way. So that was really helpful to us. It kept us from having to, one of us always using all of our sick days. It kept our kids from feeling like only one of these two parents can take care of me when I'm sick, and it has to be that one. It just spread the responsibility a little bit more evenly. And I will say, let's see, other supports. Some of it had to do with mindset, really. I just had to decide that it's okay if my house isn't spotless. that's just the house cleaning. It's just maybe not going to happen from like August to November. Things will be reasonably clean, but not really ready for company. August through November is a really, really time intensive period for band directors. We're not going to be home. And when we are home, we don't want to clean the house. We want to be with our kids. We want to make a meal together. And so I think that another important thing is using those supports, but then also deciding what your priorities are going to be and just making a life that feels comfortable with the priorities you chose.
Wow, that was really powerful, Dr. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we were doing our research on this topic, we came across a book called Fair Play. It's by author Eve Rodsky. And within that book and other data that we collected, the thing that kept coming forward was this community aspect that you touched on in your response about it really does take a village, whether you have children or don't have children. It takes a village to find success in this career. And I think that women in particular have a really strong bond to community and the cultivation of that community. And that this partnership with your spouse, with people you work with those wonderful families that took your children and then would bring them to the football games. There's just so much power within that. And then it's modeling for future generations. It is possible. Just seeing this in action. And I think sometimes what I'm experiencing right now is being in the beginning era of raising a family. My son just turned 8 months yesterday. And so starting to figure out and understand, one, to fail is okay, and that it's important for my students to see that I can't be at this thing because my son is sick. That is okay. Not only is it okay, it's important because it shows that there's a prioritization. As awful as I feel about not being able to do it, and like you said, then the next day I'll be there and we're going to have this balance. Also, I know it's possible because I saw it modeled for me with a teacher, and I saw her go through the beginning journeys of academia with two small children and watched her have some boundaries. And also I watched her kids, and just being able to see that fluidity and that power is really, really beautiful. So thank you for being able to put that into such tangible, expressive methods that other people can use.
I agree. I was thinking as you were describing the scheduling and all of these really specific ways that you handled these challenging times, how exciting it is to have this. And hopefully that other people will take these small nuggets like, yes, trading sick days is brilliant. Things that we wouldn't necessarily think about. And when you're in the thick of an overwhelming situation and you have this sick child in front of you and you're like, what do I do? And I think that's a lot of teaching. And that's a lot of academia, not just with children, but in general, is just that kind of sense of, I'm so overwhelmed and I have so many things to do. How can I possibly get everything done? And you described it perfectly. The answer is you're not going to get everything done, and you need to prioritize what is important to you and what needs to get done. And sometimes that looks like not having a spotless house, and that's going to be difficult for me as I move through my life as someone who prioritizes that sense of spatial organization. It helps my brain a lot. But it's real. And there's times when I'm gone for 2 weeks and I'm like, well, yeah, all the laundry it's dirty. And that's okay. It's part of life. And I think also you describing the marching band season is really relatable. I feel like for choral directors, that's the Christmas season, and then also like January through March. And now a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Hagan, composer and founder of Compose Like a Girl, a choral series dedicated to empowering composers who identify as women through mentorship, publication, and promotion. With over 30 pieces in the series, with many different voicings, we're showcasing fresh, compelling music like Womankind by Emily Drum, The Infinity of Space by Ritika Bhattacharjee, and When I Become an Old Woman by Sherry Blevins. Explore the catalog at jocelynhagan.com/composelikeagirl and graphitepublishing.com.
And we're back.
I appreciate you talking about all of those things and really methodically listing out like, yeah, these are some things that worked for us. And it's important to take all of these items into consideration and really prioritize what's going to work for you and your family and your community.
So, Dr. Wilson, you have a really important job at Mississippi College where you are the coordinator of graduate studies in music, as well as the coordinator of music education. And a lot of listeners who tune into the podcast might be interested in taking the next step in their journey, whether that looks like moving to a different school, whether that looks like changing grade levels that they're teaching, whether it looks like returning to school for another degree or pursuit of higher education. We are wondering, from the scope of your roles, from your perspective, can you talk about timing and how you knew it was time, or how you might advise someone that it's time to make a change, whether that's changing schools or going back to school for additional education?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. And I'm excited to tell you a little bit about my perspective on that. I went back for my master's degree because, as a teacher who was initially trained in Kentucky, that was an expectation put out for Kentucky teachers that they had to start at the time I started. They had to start their master's degree within 5 years of graduating with their undergraduate degree, and they had to finish it within 5 years of starting. So, in my head, even though I moved to a new state that didn't require that, I still just wanted my master's in music education. I taught for 3 years after my bachelor's degree before I went for a master's degree. And as I tell my undergraduate students, I really recommend getting out there and getting a couple of years of teaching under your belt, because with a bachelor's degree in music education, you can go into a master's degree in musicology, conducting, composition, education, performance. There's so much that you can do. And each of these represents a really unique facet of music and advanced study. So go teach and figure out, is teaching my passion? Am I loving the conducting part of my job more? Am I really being refueled by those performance opportunities that I have on voice or on instrument or whatever? What is making me feel fulfilled? And then go make your master's study in that. If you feel fulfilled by something, go do more of it, because it's only going to energize you, and it's going to be something that you need to draw on when you do get overwhelmed with scheduling. So I say teach a couple of years and then figure out what you want to go back for your master's degree for. And then, as I said, I had no idea that I would ever want to go into a doctoral program until I did my master's program. And it was the research end of it, the practical research, and the idea that I wanted to serve future music educators that really brought me back to that. That, I think, is where a lot of music education professors have that experience, is just wanting to give back in that way. The timing is so personal. I don't know how to advise someone on when it's time to go for a master's degree and when it's time to go for a doctorate. I can tell you that it was just listening to myself and thinking deeply about what I wanted to spend my time doing. And that is what led me to on the path that I was on. I think that time for introspection is really important. Now, I will say that I talked to my husband 3 times, I think, about getting a PhD in music right after I finished my master's. And he said, I don't know if it's really time. We had some conversations about that, and I decided to wait. Brought it up again, same result. Third time I brought it up, he said, maybe we could think about that. And at the time, I think my son was 3, my daughter was 5. And so we started making a plan a year and a half before I wanted to start my degree. We said, okay, when he gets into kindergarten, she gets into 2nd grade, that's when we're going to do this. When nobody's in daycare anymore, we can put them in school in the same district where I'm going to school. I can arrange my class schedule to where I can pick them up, take them home. We can rely on that wonderful support system to help us when we both need to be away, things like that. So we were able to avoid incurring daycare expenses by doing that. There were a couple of semesters that they had to go to after school care, but that was actually after I finished my degree and went back into teaching for a year. We actually didn't have to use after school care until that. So financially, that was beneficial for us. Emotionally, it was nice because I would come home, I'd have my homework, my 2nd grader would have her homework, we'd sit down and do our homework together. Sometimes people say you shouldn't go back to school when you have children. Some people who say that think you should prioritize your kids. This is the time for your kids. I would say that nothing compares to walking across that stage, getting your hood, and looking up in the audience to see your two kids cheering you on with your husband, your mother-in-law, your parents, right there, cheering for you because you finished your degree. They saw me do that. Now my kids know women can go get doctorates. People can make choices to have jobs they love even when they have a family. Something worth having sometimes takes hard work. They know all that because they're watching me go through it. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I'm literally crying on the podcast. What's new? Dr. Wilson, wow, I'm just so grateful that we get to interview today because for so many reasons, but I think the way that you speak about timing is something that everyone in the profession, I think, could benefit from listening to your answer. Because so often people come in with, even though we've talked about the fluidity of the career, even though we've talked about that no one's trajectory looks the same, I think then sometimes people return to academia and decide if you don't have this and this and this, then you should not be coming back to school. Or if you don't meet XYZ criteria, then you're not qualified for this degree. Or if you haven't gone to this school before this school, then you know it's not the right program for you. And I think that that is not the way to go about it. I think, as you said, life is personal and life is short. So the evaluation of if it's the right time to do something needs to be between you, the person that puts their head on the pillow every night, and that community, that support system that you are a part of. So I think that's point one that I think we could just replay and put it on a billboard for anybody thinking about filling out graduate applications. I think number two, when I was at the University of Kansas, there was a graduate student, a PhD student who came back to school, and her kids were in school. And she wants to do research about what it's like to return and be a graduate student and have kids. And just the reality of graduate school expectations while balancing being in a family and having those responsibilities. I'd also be intrigued about that research specifically related to moms who are breastfeeding or have like a physical attachment to your child at that time. I think there's so much data to be gleaned and studied, but we were talking about this with my husband. He has an opportunity to go on a trip this summer. And he was saying to me, I don't know if I should go because I feel like I'm letting down our son. And I said, but Brian, he's going to see you doing this thing. He's going to see you doing this thing. And how proud is he going to be of you because you're able to go and do this and to have areas that you love and thrive in that are not just our household. So again, not necessarily women, men, but just the prioritization of family and the prioritization of yourself within that. That was really touching today. So thank you for sharing that.
Dr. Wilson, I saw you light up when McKenna mentioned breastfeeding. So if there's anything that you wanted to say about that, you are welcome to pop in. I just wanted to add, when you were describing your walking at graduation and having your kids and your entire family there, McKenna and I experienced that with our own mom, who went back to school and got her doctorate when I was in college. And so she started it when I was in high school and went part-time while she was working. And it's interesting. You've said a couple of times today how non-linear life is and how you never expected to be working in academia. And I really echo that statement. When I think back to my undergraduate studies, I was ready to get out of there. I was like, let me teach, please let me be in charge. Like, I don't want to go back to school. I'm burnt out. I need to do something else. And then just through, a series of life's exciting and sometimes heartbreaking experiences, I ended up back in graduate school, and now I'm getting my DMA. I mean, I never would have anticipated this even 6 or 7 years ago. And so I was thinking about how fortunate I am to have had my mom show me that at any time you can go back to school, and that nothing in life is permanent. And if you don't want it to be, you can say, I want to take this next step and have that conversation, even if it's scary. and take a year off and teach a toddler preschool class because your baby's there, and have that moment where you're just really being a mom. I mean, you can do all of these things, and we are not limited to just one path. And so that was just really, really beautiful to hear you describe that. And I think our mom, when she's editing this episode, will be will be smiling as well. Did you want to mention anything about the physical nature of having babies with you during this experience, Dr. Wilson? Or was that just like an excited light up face of like, yes, breastfeeding is hard?
Breastfeeding is hard. Yes, finding the time to be able to coordinate the logistics of nourishing a baby while you are also teaching is a very sensitive area for a lot of moms. And the way I navigated that during the time that I was nursing my daughter, I was teaching 4th and 5th grade music at an elementary school, and my classroom was in a portable building. So that was probably very fortunate for me, because who goes to the portable building? Only people who absolutely have to. Nobody's just stopping by to visit. So I would close my door. It would automatically lock. I could cover the window, take care of it in there. Women find all kinds of creative ways to work around the whole breastfeeding thing. I'll say, even I had her in March, and I went back to school for the last couple of weeks because my maternity leave had really run out, and I was band director and needed to be at school for the last few weeks if I could manage it. She was in a daycare that was very close to my school, and I would actually go feed her during my conference period so that I wouldn't have to. So that's a very unique situation, but if that appeals to a listener out there and they figure they can make that work, it's worth asking. What's the worst somebody's going to say? No? You might as well ask.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
The Conductor Choral Series, powered by Music Spoke, is an intentional platform that highlights the voices of women and their allies in the choral music world. This series is designed to elevate and celebrate the contributions of women throughout history, as well as those currently shaping the music scene. Its name, Conductor, intertwines the role of a conductor with the concept of empowerment and the recognition of women in music, a field where their contributions have often been overlooked or underrepresented.
The series serves as a celebration of diverse women's voices, composers, conductors, singers, and advocates, by providing access to choral works that reflect their unique perspectives, creativity, and experiences. Through this collection, Music Spoke gives both emerging and established composers the opportunity to share their voices with the choral community, providing a sense of inclusivity, visibility, and accessibility to repertoire. Check out the Conduct Her Choral Series today for your next concert.
And we're back.
Tell your principal, I'm going to be off campus during this part of my conference time. Or if it's a situation where you need to request permission to be off campus, you can go ahead and explain that as you feel necessary. But we have every right to be able to expect to use our conference time or our lunch times to be able to take care of our kids' needs as well. As long as we're doing our jobs, we can take care of those other things.
I think, like you said, Dr. Wilson, like the nourishing of a baby, so personal, everybody's choice is their own choice. And however that journey works out for you is so important. It's very personal for you and your baby and your family. And having just traveled, I've done 2 big travels where I've had to go a couple nights without being with my baby and being on that journey myself. I also think that, again, advocacy and knowing your rights. Like, I know when I travel, I know that I can bring breast milk home in a frozen cooler bag through American Airlines. And I know when I go through my pre-check and I go through the security line, I know that I'm looking for certain attendants to help me. And I know that there are nursing stations in a lot of airports, and I know some are nicer than others. But I'm really, I want to encourage everybody that it is possible also to continue that journey if it's something you wish, and do some traveling in a way that feels right for you and your family, and that there are supports out there, and just asking. like telling my handlers, hey, I need to go up to my hotel room at the break, or I need a break built in at this time, because I need to be able to do this and care for my baby back home. So I think people are really willing to work with you, and want to see you succeed if you're also willing to share and to just say what you do need.
Hmm. Well, Dr. Wilson, before I move on to, I think, maybe our last larger question, I just want to say you're such an excellent listener, and just the way that you interact with McKenna and I, people you just met, I can only imagine being a student in your class, because you are so attentive and really really engaged in the conversation in a way that I think is unique. And so I just wanted to shout out that you seem like an excellent educator. And I think that your students are really lucky to have you in their life as someone who's willing to say, hey, we are all different. And that's what makes us beautiful and unique. And let's encourage you to go out and be the best version of yourself. So we just really appreciate you being here and are excited to have you as our first band director on the podcast.
Kyra, thank you. That means so much. I feel like that's a really important thing for me to be able to do with my students. And it's really encouraging to know that that comes through to you as well as someone just meeting me. So thank you for those kind words.
Absolutely. So this will be our last larger question for you, and then we'll do a couple fast five at the end and get you on your merry way. So the last question, and this is kind of a large one, is if you had just one piece of advice to give to other women wanting to pursue a career in the arts, what would it be?
It's hard to whittle down to just one. I think, and this is going to be somewhat a summary of what we've talked about today, but I think it is to know yourself, to know what's most important to you, to realize that once you prioritize and you find those mentors that help you see how to do it and help you talk through your decision making, and you actually put your plan into action, you might still come across times where you don't feel like you've made the right choice. You don't feel like you're enough of a mom at home. You don't feel like you're enough of a teacher at school. You don't feel like you're doing enough for your conducting. You may feel like everybody is still sort of getting shortchanged. Nobody's perfect. It's okay. We're all just doing our best. As Brene Brown says, my life is better if I just assume that everybody is doing the best they can, right? And so just do the next right thing for you and stay in touch with your feelings. If you're a person of faith, stay in touch with that higher power that you believe in. Communicate with your community and just trust that though it's not perfect, it's a great journey and it's worthy.
Oh, that was just the perfect, the perfect ending. Oh, Dr. Wilson, that was so beautiful. McKenna's furiously writing down that quote so that we can post it later.
I think too, Dr. Wilson, you said it so many ways today, but I think that continued messaging of even if it's not perfect, it's a great journey. And a reminder that sometimes we place unrealistic expectations upon ourselves that nobody else is putting on us. It's from us. Like we are the ones that have determined this is a success, this is not a success. This is something that's important right now versus this is not important. But if you actually can take that breath and take a second and assess, is this a me or is this something that really does need to get done right now? Or is this something that really is going to have a massive impact? Or the question that I am trying to ask myself more these days is this something that's going to impact me in 6 months? And if it's not, it's probably okay that it didn't happen or that it's not going to get done in this moment. The other really great, I've got that one on this shoulder, and then on the opposite shoulder, I have my dear mentor, Dr. Jessica Napolis, who speaks into my ear multiple times a day and says, McKenna, is that your problem to solve? And I love that one. And I will keep that with me forever. So if you're out there really connecting with some of the things that Dr. Wilson has said today, feel free to take those questions and ask them yourself as well. So, well, Dr. Wilson, it has just been an absolute privilege and joy to get to speak with you today and to learn from you. And we would love to ask you our Fast Five questions. These are just really quick little bits of information for our audience to take with us as they go along their way. And we are really excited to ask if you have a favorite current piece or composer recommendation for our listeners out there. And this can be band or choral or general music, whatever brings you joy.
Yes. I think someone that I always love is Frank Kelly. I will specifically shout out a piece that he has incorporated voice into. There's a piece called Angels in the Architecture for wind band and soprano soloist that is positively divine. Julie Giroux, she is local to me here in Mississippi, amazing composer. One of my experiences here at MC was serving as interim band director for the spring semester in 2022, and I had an instrumental music ed major. In my classes at the time, we were doing band methods and we were doing band literature together, and I asked her to choose a piece that she would then conduct with the wind ensemble. So she taught it, she conducted it, and she chose Julie Giroux's Crown of Thorns, which is an incredible piece about basically it's the entire story of the week leading up to the crucifixion of Christ and then the crucifixion, the resurrection, and it's amazing. Choral, I'm a sucker for anything Morton Lauritsen. I mean, that just puts me in my happy place. If I need to be restored, have peace, enjoy something beautiful, I love this stuff. So those are my quick ones.
You've got a real USC theme there because Frank Kelly taught at USC and just retired a year or two ago. He's amazing. And then Morton Lauritsen as well also taught there. So you're channeling the West Coast choral people.
Wow. Had no idea. There we go.
All right. Our second Fast Five question is, what is one misconception about you?
I think people think I'm mad when I'm not. You haven't seen it as much because I've been smiling a lot through this podcast. I have had truly heartfelt joy through all of this process. But if I just sit and relax, see, it's there's an acronym for it. I'll just say I look mad when I'm not. I might just be thinking. So totally. I have to be very conscious of what my mouth is doing because I need to make the corners of my mouth turn up just a little so that I look not mad. So anyway, I think that's a common misconception that I'm mad when I'm just listening or thinking.
Or your face just needs a break, you know? Like sometimes your face is just like, I just need a break. That's amazing. Number 3, what is one word you would use to describe yourself as a conductor teacher?
I love that you use the conductor/teacher. I love that because I don't think that we end up only being one of those things most of the time. So thank you for that. Authentic. It is too hard for me to be somebody else. I have had amazing teachers. I am not Keith Vincent. I am not Susan Brumfield. I am not Jan Killian. But I try to take some of the best things that I've appreciated about them and incorporate it into myself. I'm a pretty good Renee Wilson. I find it too hard to be anybody else. And so I don't fight it anymore. What you see is what you get.
That would be a great children's book.
Thank you.
It's too hard to be anybody else. I love that. Maybe this is in your future, Dr. Wilson.
Maybe so. But isn't that the lesson we all have to learn? Is
Yes. The way you said that, I was like, absolutely. One time a mentor told me to be a sponge. And so to absorb the things that you like and you can take with you and release everything that you don't think is authentic to yourself. And I think that's a beautiful way of saying it. It's too hard to be anybody else. Let's just be ourselves. All right. Number 4 is silly. What is a musical blooper that you have experienced in your career?
so. I have been thinking about this because I don't like telling embarrassing stories on myself. I don't think anybody does, but the inner perfectionist in me is just like, no. But I will tell you that in one of my observations, right before I went back to start on my PhD, I was being evaluated. And I always tell my students, and I always told my administrators, you can come watch me teach anytime. Again, I'm authentic. I'm not doing anything special when you come in. I'm teaching every day, all day long. There's content, there are objectives. There's not one day or one class that's any better than any other. But I had an arranged observation, and my principal came in and watched what was going on in class, and we had our meeting afterward. And he said, you had a student in the trombone section taking a nap. I said, I did? Didn't even notice. The person, I guess, was sort of using their trombone. Band directors will be able to visualize this. They have the slide on the ground and they're sort of leaning over the top of it on the top of the trombone. Apparently, while I was working with other sections, I think I would notice if they were supposed to have their horn up and playing, but also maybe not. That's where the blooper is I completely missed a 7th grader sleeping during a band class.
Engagement doesn't look the same for everybody. So, like
some people are just tired.
People are just tired. Maybe that was really important for that kid who really needed just a brief respite. That's amazing. And a good reminder that teaching is real, right? Like there's no perfect day. You're teaching human beings. So I think that's very powerful. Finally, last but not least, would you share a favorite musical memory?
Again, just one, huh? I'm actually going to tell 2 short ones that happened relatively recently. One, this last spring, I went to a reception honoring what we call in Mississippi star students. I don't know if they have this in other states or not. But when you are selected to be the star student from your school or one of the star students from your school, you get to select the teacher who is most influential to you. And my daughter made star student for her school. And so I found myself at this reception getting to enjoy her success. When I looked up and realized over the course of some time walking around that I had 2 former students there as star teachers. One choir director and one band director who had been selected by the star students at their schools. I was pretty proud of Ethan Martin and Sean Collins on that day. That was amazing. Then there's another experience that happened. I went back to Texas for my Kodai certification, and I was there for my 2nd level, and I was having lunch, and there were a bunch of new people around the table. I assumed were level 1 people because I hadn't had any classes with them yet. And so as the level 2, I thought, well, I'll just facilitate some discussion here. I said, well, let's go around the table, just introduce yourself and tell where you're from. So we go around, and the person next to me said that she was teaching at a particular school. And I said, oh, I used to teach at that school. Who's still there? I started this whole discussion. And this person sitting across the table from me said, I knew it. And I said, what? And they said, when were you there? And I listed the years. And they said, you were my music teacher. And I said, really? And this person had some really complimentary things to say about their memory of me as a teacher. And I pulled this person aside later and I said, I feel like I should apologize. That was one of the 3 hardest teaching years of my life. I was working for an administration that was not supportive. I felt alienated and isolated and unappreciated. There were some really awful things that happened that year. I have no idea what your experience was like as a student in my classroom. So if it was anything less than stellar, I just want to apologize to you. And they said, no, I had an elementary music teacher that I remembered as being really, really good. And I told my mom and my grandmother all this time that I wish I knew who that person was. And that was you. And this person was now working on their level 1 in Kodai, getting ready to become an elementary music teacher themselves. And it was an incredible realization for me that even in our hardest years, there's fruit. Be faithful.
Oh, that was beautiful, Dr. Wilson. I just want to send this episode to all of my teacher friends and be like, hey, all we can do is our best. And what you said about the observations too, of just, I'm teaching every day and you can come anytime. It's just what a great reminder that we are all humans and we are in music for the other people. And so even on our worst days, we still are giving someone what they need. So it's beautiful.
Well, we are just so grateful to you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And to our listeners, be sure to check us out online. You can find us at our website, conductor.com. You can also follow us on social media, conduct.her.pod. For our Gmails to reach out in any way, we have all sorts of resources online, and we hope that you will check us out. And thank you so much, everybody. This has been Conductor.
Thank you for listening. This has been Conductor. This episode was engineered and mixed by Mary Hannah Klontz with intro and outro music by Chloe Garut and ad music by Kate Krellin.
Discover more resources at conductor.com.